kids. Last night, a friend of mine spent 4 hours at her school board meeting. Culmination of a year-long effort by parents who are racist and transphobic to change what is being taught in their schools. A lot of the conversations we're having at the doors are about the issues of reproductive rights, issues of police violence. These are unquestionably the top issues, I think, going forward for us, especially as Metro candidates. Conversations that are happening in people's homes very often are about these other matters. And the idea of there is a desire to wield power that is being executed at the level of our children's schools that is afraid of any difference. And, right, there is no non-queer history. There is no non-American history that doesn't include the Black community and slavery and Reconstruction and everything they're trying to just blink out of existence. And we need to make sure we're just aware of that fight as well, of course.
Yes, it's a very interesting time to be a school board member. I do want to say that St. Cloud has been, I don't think lucky is the right word, but we're probably 10 to 15 years ahead of this topic and of this discussion because our Somali neighbors really started moving in about 20 years ago here in St. Cloud. And so we had a very tumultuous first 10 years of really trying to best serve all students in our schools and be at the forefront of community integration, basically. Not even saying like Somali refugees or immigrants integrating into the community. I'm saying like the community integrating into each other. And there was a lot of tension, and there still can be some tension in our community, but it's gotten much better over the last years. But we border places that are just years behind us, but very, very difficult situations. Equity directors run out of school districts. Students and parents going on Fox News saying that their children shouldn't have to be asked what gender they are, that students shouldn't have to learn about they them, and just things of that nature that are just part of who we are. I think Erica said it best that my kids, one of the first things they do when they meet someone is they ask their pronouns. It is very common in teenagers today to first of all respect who that person is by asking that person who that person is, and then really only respecting that, but valuing that as well. If one person says the wrong pronoun to someone else, all of them will be like, "Hey, nope, it's they them." Remember? Oh yeah, that's right. And so they're keeping each other accountable to really be in relationship with each other. Again, like what I said before was this is not just like a one-off. Like the people around us aren't just kind of making up this CRT issue and going at it. There's literal playbooks, right? You can print out a PDF of here's what you do, here's what you say to your school district, here's how you infiltrate their curriculum, here's how you basically make it hard for teachers to teach, for administrators to administer, and for school boards to get anything done. And like I said, we haven't seen that much of that here in St. Cloud because we've been really clear about who we are. But it has broken apart our communities, and it has caused, for me personally, I'll say that through the last years of my journey as an anti-racist facilitator, I've been kicked out of churches. I've lost friends. My kids couldn't play with some kids anymore because they thought I was dangerous, especially after when I say that George Floyd was murdered, those are fighting words to some folks here. So it's a continuous movement towards something better. But I would say that our institutions, schools, churches, jails for sure, anything to do with our criminal justice system upholds the old ways. And in a vast measure. And so I don't put a lot of faith in institutions. I say that as a school board member, but there has to be just some radical change in our institutions in order to serve everyone, and in order for everyone to have a voice, not a voice at the table, not even just a seat at the table, but like leading the table. And I think Erica's right as well. It's our youth that already get it. They're not our future leaders. They're our current leaders.
I just have some, like a really quick story to share about this critical race theory stuff. I had a conversation with someone on the phone, and I think there was also someone at the door when they brought that up, you know. And I just my goal has been to try to learn what they mean by that. Have them define it, like, you know. So, and people have not been able to for me. I haven't found anybody yet, you know, like when they mention the critical race theory, I'm like, oh, like, can you tell me more? Like, what does that mean in schools to you? Like, what do you know, what are you trying to have done or not done, you know? And then they're like, oh, well, it was, you know, it's just like, I don't think I haven't been able to find anyone that really can even know what they're talking about. And so it really got me thinking about I've been thinking a lot about running and how the other party is really, really good at these little snippets of information that people don't even fully understand, but that they're all fired up about it. Right? You know, why are we afraid? Like, of people that are different? Like, what is that? So I've been asking a lot of whys lately, and I'm trying to get there, like figure out why. And again, well, no, I didn't even say this yet. I come from an entire conservative family. Yeah. So almost everybody in my whole family is very right, very far right. And so I've grown up with it. I get a lot of the parts of it and I actually agree with some of it, you know, but a lot of this stuff, like the critical race theory, it's like, what does that actually mean? I just had a conversation with someone yesterday, and the last couple of days I've been thinking of creating a new party called the Evolve Party. And yeah, just the change part, right? Like, oh my God, you people. That's the one thing that's constant throughout all time, right? Is that we change and we need to like figure things out and get better. And why can't we all do that together? Oh man. And then the second piece is that at Bemidji State, I worked for the last 3 years we finally in the spring got an Indigenous course requirement for all undergrads. We're the first university in the country learn about learn about the people, the original peoples of this place that are still here, still, you know, we're still working, we're still doing lots of things. So
the way Erica is engaging with folks is the right way, because it's a distraction, right? And it's a red herring, because you know, the question is like, what is the other side doing to make people's lives better, right? And they don't have anything. And so super important to say, hey, like we're trying to teach your students about themselves, right, their communities and like where they come from. And critical race theory is something totally different, and you don't learn it in elementary, you know, even high school, right? It's a legal theory, totally something else. But I love that, right? And really just saying, hey, well, like tell me what you think that means, because that's the best way to really fight it if you really need to. In St. Paul, we passed an ethnic studies requirement, right? And people, you know, like have mixed feelings about that too. But it's really because like our student population is so diverse, right? And in our community is so diverse. I think Mickey kind of hinted at this in the questions. It makes people a little bit uncomfortable. But I mean, you know, we're not going to become a whole community, you know, until like everyone else is a little bit uncomfortable, right? And I think a lot of us touch a little bit upon this. The murder of George Floyd, it was a really big, you know, moment for our communities, particularly in the Twin Cities, but also like across Minnesota. And I think we haven't quite figured out what lessons to take from that yet, right? And like how we you know, build that into our everyday lives yet. And so Erica's right, like there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear right now. because people are afraid of change. And, I think for us, I always think women legislators are more effective. There's studies that show that. And also, I think we tend to be a little bit more diplomatic because we're not about ego and we're about, getting the job done. And I really hope that, with all the new women entering the legislature and also like women in public office across the state, we'll get there somehow, right? And I don't know what that looks like, right? And I think a lot of people are afraid of like what George Floyd's murder is going to mean for us like 5, 10, 15 years from now. And like what learning the truth, right, means for our kids and how Minnesota came to be the way it is. And
I come at this from an academics perspective, and it's a very confusing for me because I learned about it in law school. I was had the really great opportunity that Richard Delgado, who was one of the founders of the critical race theory movement, was my civil procedure professor. And then it is something that we talk about, we read about in graduate level coursework and getting your PhD, but it was certainly nothing we were even teaching at an undergraduate level as such critical race theory. So as Liz said, it truly is a canard. It's not really about and as Erica said, when you ask people, what does it mean? It has no meaning for them outside of something else.
I have kind of a philosophical take on this, and that is, through the lineage of humanity, we tell stories, and that's how we understand each other. That's how we connect. That's what we're doing right now. We're telling stories, and we get to know each other through those stories. But if we deny our history, then we also deny our sense of shared humanity, and we deny our ability to learn and connect and heal.
Jump in because I think there's a lot of fear that is out there in terms of whose story is being told. And I know I grew up with like one story, and I love learning more stories. And so it's been opening and refreshing to me. But for a lot of people, they're afraid and they think they're losing. And I think somehow this message around how to be inclusive is being used by people who want to see it in a negative way and use that as a loss of versus a improvement of or an opening of inclusive. And I just find that really sad that we're more, people can easily go to fear versus, oh, that's interesting, or I could learn more about this. And I just wish we had more of that than fear mongering and playing into that with people who have a lot to learn.
So this is, obviously well into my bailiwick in running for the school board. I think that what's happening is it's just a vocal minority. I don't think the vast majority of voters, of parents, of educators want to restrict the view of the world and want to keep students from learning about our history, which is it's not good about how we've marginalized people. It's a very, very sad history in that regard. But the vast majority want children to learn about that because it's a diverse country and it's going to continue to get more diverse. But it is just a vocal minority that's fighting that. That is, is saying that things should change. And I think that for school boards, they're scared. The school board members are, and the superintendents are scared to death of that vocal minority. I mean, I literally want to get elected so that I can be somebody to say, we're not going to be scared and we're going to do what's right for the students, not because just a handful of parents are castigating people, on social media and at school board meetings.
My kids are in public schools in St. Paul, and we are starting to do more ethnic studies, and it matters, right? It matters for my children to see themselves in history because we always have been, right? Not only are we children of the victors, as Alicia mentioned, but we're also people with history and legacy, and we all are. And I think that's the thing too, is I agree with you, Ellie. I think it is a vocal minority that's tapping into a fear, but it's also saying, how do we not grow as people if we don't understand complexity and histories of others? We are most richest when we learn about people who are different from us. And we also, the pride that's also instilled in us when we learn about and see ourselves in history and story as well, and teach
I
others.
would say I grew up, going through the entire school system, not knowing who I was as a Hmong person. And so I remember like doing like all of my like history projects on like Hmong history, and like not like knowing who my identity as a Hmong person, and as people who don't have a physical country, right? That the only way that we can learn about our people is through oral traditions passed down from our families and our elders. But our elders who have that history and knowledge are passing away, and they are leaving this world. And so it's important to know that part of us, because we go through the world being judged, being treated based on how we look, based on like the very little knowledge of our history, and the little knowledge that people know about our history, right? And so we experience all of these like forms of oppression and hate, but we don't understand the history, the cause of that, right? And so it's really important for us to talk about that and be real about that. And
as a parent myself, I've got a kiddo in an immersion program at a school where they have Ojibwe and Spanish immersion, but they also bring in many other cultures and languages. And it is such a strength, and it's the fabric of our community. And in that, I appreciate that you said that vocal minority of it's a small group, and it is based in a scarcity versus an abundance mode. I mean, look at our changing demographics. We've been working on the census. Our communities are changing. And we've been here, and we're going to continue to be here. And that doesn't have to be a scary thing. It can be a really beautiful thing. One of the things I'm really excited to work on if elected is things like the Teacher of Color bill, to make sure that our teachers, our educators, and our curriculum are responsive. I see every day my kid comes home and they're learning about trans and LGBTQ folks. And she went to camp at YMCA this summer, and she said, oh my gosh, my camp counselor was Native and trans woman. And it's something that just beams with pride of being able to see herself reflected in a way that I too grew up not seeing anything about our people. And if our stories, they started in 1492 on, right? If we were in anything. And so I think what a really beautiful moment that we're in, if we can hold off and withstand and help folks to meet this moment with curiosity rather than fear.
So I grew up, like I said, I grew up here. And when I first came here, I think, okay, how do I phrase it? So when I first came here, I didn't know I was Black. Okay. So, and I say this because I came from a predominantly, if not all African, Black, dark-skinned people, right? And so the concept of being Black is something I have never thought about, right? Up until I started going to public schools in America. And you realize very quick who you are, right? And how people perceive you, how people will treat you, and what you get to learn, right? So as an immigrant, as a refugee, I think I relied a lot on public schools to learn about the history of America. And I will say they have failed me beyond belief, because I have graduated high school not knowing about the Tulsa massacre, not knowing the atrocities, the heinous acts that were done to Native Americans in our state of Minnesota and are still continuing to be done, right? About the concentration camps, right? None of it. These are things that I've learned in my line of work as an equity and inclusion worker specialist, right? I've done it in Robbinsdale. I have done it, and now I'm doing it at the Department of Human Services, right? This is stuff that I'm still learning to this day. And I feel like that is an injustice to my learning, that I haven't learned it in school. These are part of our history. These are our social studies and whatnot. And so part of like one thing that I've gotten into as part of like my child advocacy and working in schools and things like that is that we get to a space where we recognize that America has done horrible things globally, even, right? Half of the refugees who are here, who have immigrated to America, is because of what America has done in their home. And I know that's very controversial, and people don't like to, admit that, but that's true, right? And so recognizing where America stands in the world, recognizing what it's done to its own people, right? And healing from that. Because we can only begin to start healing once we start telling the truth. You could just tell the passion that just pours out of me on this topic, because it's really truly sad that I am still learning about new things that's happened in America that is affecting people, right? And our history very much still shows up differently today, right?
One of our schools, Armstrong, had a football game the other day against Chanhassen, and the kids were having a great time, and some of the kids on the team started screaming the N-word towards the Black members of our Armstrong team. If anybody knows anything, Armstrong is predominantly our white school. We have some Blacks who go there, and some of them are on the football team. And Chanhassen is a white school, pretty much. And they were just very racist towards our children. That said, it's not the first time we've had racism in the district. But that said, the coaches took the extra step not to wait until the media caught on, not to wait until they got back to discipline the children. They did it right there in front of the team, right there in front of us. They took the extra step. They did the overtime. And that's what it's going to take for us to teach anything we want to about American history, particularly American history, what happened to natives, what's still happening to natives and Black people and Latinos, and taking that responsibility and talking to our children and letting them process their emotions on which way they want to go. Because right now they're just out there and they're using it. They're saying the N-word, they're calling people monkeys, and that's the way I will vote and create policy around that we're proactive as we teach these ethnic studies that people are afraid to teach our children. I think it's a disservice to our children not to know history, but it will take more work from us.
That having grown up in a segregated South, Texas namely, and seeing, how much history wasn't brought forth, but living it at the same time, I was saying I feel like there's more racism so prevalent now because people are so emboldened and brave to just say what they want to say, come out of their shell and be who they've always been, thanks to our former president and all of the issues that he brought forth in this country. But I'm also a family member of those who were affected by the Tulsa riot or the Tulsa massacre. I can't call it a riot. We have so much that can be gained in our schools and in our churches and in our communities when we talk about the history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It doesn't diminish any one person, it just tells the truth. I mean, the truth has to be told, and it's coming out, which is why I think we have so many problems that surface today. These truths being revealed. You just can't keep things in the dark forever, because it will come to light. And I think that's what we're experiencing. I've read, like Sharon said, so many of the books that are on that banned list. And, I didn't walk away from that feeling like it was something I did not need to know. It's just, we need to have our eyes open, and everybody has to play a role in the telling of our stories. We tell our stories. The white story has been told forever and ever, and it's not based on truth, not in all aspects. That's a generalization, but we certainly have many aspects of how this country was built, how other groups of people have contributed to this country, but those stories have not been told. So we have a lot of work to do.